Trey Caldwell, you are a representative in the area of Southwest Oklahoma. So, kind of when did you start looking into this?
I'd heard of it. I remembered it happening when I was a child. I think I was in maybe sixth or fourth or third or fourth grade, somewhere in that time frame. I remember when it all happened. So it was always tangentially aware of it. And I found out about 2 weeks ago, Trooper Green's mother had reached out to my office, and that was the first I'd heard about it. That's the first I'd heard about the competency review, that the two doctors that had declared about the former attorney general, that's not the attorney general anymore. Uh, Attorney General Drummond has been great to work with on this. And it's really kind of one of those things that I feel like it kind of slipped through the cracks. And when I found out about it, and I started wanting to digging around and making some phone calls, talk to some of the old judges there in Comanche County. Guys like Mark Smith, who was the judge on the trial, talked to Judge McCall, who was on the pardon and parole board for 5 or 6 years and had seen this type of stuff before. And and really wanted to kind of get their opinion on it and say, hey, what is the legal process? Like, we have laws for a reason, and, we do not put people that are deemed mentally incompetent we do not execute them, and we have to restore competency. But at the same point in time, kind of after, 2017, he was declared incompetent after a couple of issues, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a mental health expert, but at the same point in time, I also thought like he'd tried this before and he'd been coached by lawyers before. One of his defenses, a multitude of times during the two trials, again, he was convicted and sentenced to death twice because they threw out the first trial and they had to do it all over again. They had to change a venue. The trial happened in Comanche County while the crime happened in Cotton County. The defense attorney requested to move venues. That was granted. They had two different trials. And then a plethora of appeals. And a lot of the times on these appeals, judges and juries have looked at this, looked at the data, and said, no, he's mentally competent. And then all of a sudden, you get two doctors that basically agree and say, no, he can't go on the death row. So you completely circumvent the justice system. The way that's supposed to be handled is you're supposed to have another trial, not over guilt, but over competency. And that trial was waived by a former attorney general in 2017. And I think from my perspective is one that should have never been waived. I could live with, if you go back to Comanche County or to Cotton County and a jury of six of Ricky Ray Malone's peers say, no, he's not mentally competent, I can live with that outcome. I can live with the outcome, the process in and of itself, I can live with that. But to have two random people that have no public recourse make that determination, and then the families and the victims and the friends, the OHP community, the Cotton County courthouse community, because I mean that was the one thing about Nik Green. He'd worked as a jailer in Walters. He'd worked as a deputy sheriff. So I just, from my perspective, is for the family, I think they need closure and want justice. And I think just for having two people to basically try to circumvent the system, I think there needs to be steps involved that we need to have systematic reevaluations. And because here's the deal: is if it's there are a lot of mental incompetencies that can be treated with medication, schizophrenia being one of them. You can be completely functioning and normal functioning. So if that's something that we can medicate and treat, we do that all the time. We have that whole process in Veneta, Oklahoma, that restores competency. That's the whole reason of the consent decree coming out of Tulsa, is the delayed fact that how many people we have in county jails that are waiting trial pending because they have been deemed incompetent, but they can't go for competency restoration because we don't have the facilities in Oklahoma. And that's one of the things we've addressed with, the Donahue Project and the money that we've put into mental health in this state. But at the same point in time, I think justice needs to be carried out if he can be reevaluated and deemed competent.
This happened years ago. Even 2017 is when he was deemed not mentally competent. Are you surprised it's taken this long to look into it again?
Yeah, I really am. I mean, but sometimes, uh, a mother's never going to stop fighting for their child, and I'm so happy that Mrs. Bowles reached out to my office and brought it to our attention. And I remember when my assistant brought it to my attention, and she'd taken the phone call, and I said, no, there's no way. And then we called DOC, and DOC was like, no. And then they called us back 20 minutes later and like, actually, we made a mistake. He's not in McAllister. He's actually in Veneta. And yes, exactly what she told us what happened had happened. And I'm just happy it finally got to my desk where myself, working with the coalition in Southwest Oklahoma, our two senators, and the other state representatives from Duncan, Stevens County, Comanche County, we joined on in a letter, and we called and worked with Gittner Drummond's office, and they really started looking into it last Monday, and here we are now. Yesterday, it was filed in Comanche County Court for a reevaluation of competency. So.
And when should that reevaluation take place?
I mean, it'll be dependent on the judge. So that'll go before a Comanche County judge, district judge. I don't know which one. I'd heard which one, but I don't know for sure, so I won't say. But it'll go before a Comanche County judge. He'll make the determination, and then he can order a recompetency trial, I believe, according to the Attorney General.
You talked about this a little bit earlier, but what does it mean to see the AG taking this request from you, from his mom, seriously, and saying, yeah, we'll revisit, we'll look into it again?
I think that, so many times we get frustrated with government, and it's things like this when we see when, it does what it's supposed to do, and it's just kind of, it's heartening. I mean, it's a good thing like that. He's going to go fight for us in Southwest Oklahoma. You have a, attorney general that's from Northeast Oklahoma that he cares, and he's going to come down to Southwest Oklahoma and make sure that our people matter, and that justice will be carried out if possible.
Talk to me about the legislation you're hoping to see in 2025, which is so neat to me because I know Nikki Green's wife was instrumental in getting legislation passed after his death. He was running that mobile lab, and not only did it affect Oklahoma, but it eventually Bush signed a law making that, standard across the United States. So we're looking at legislation a second time that could be implemented following his passing because of, his family, because of local lawmakers. So what are you hoping to see in 2025?
My hope to see the thing that I hope the most for is that when these situations happen, that we don't just put people on a shelf. We don't make one ruling on like competency, post conviction, and just say, okay, you're incompetent now, so you can go live out your best life because you did some form of self-harm. I mean, that's one of the examples with Ricky Ray Malone is a form of self-harm and some behavior that what I would consider lewd. And that was one of the reasonings. It's not the only reasonings, but those are two of the reasonings why that he was declared as such. And so again, I think just having a second set of eyes on it. I mean, one of the things that I always say, when I had knee surgery, I went and got a second opinion. When I had shoulder surgery, I went and got a second opinion. Just all different types of medical procedures, whether it's cancer or cardiac issues or whatever. We all go get second opinions all the time. And I think more than anything is like, again, putting a new set of eyes on it. And then I think the other thing too is I don't think that after the conviction has been upheld, and someone's been convicted, I don't think someone in the AG's office can unilaterally should be able to waive the right of the trial for the victims to see that if he's going to try to circumvent justice. And I think those are two things that I would like to see happen. And again, there are times when this law is probably for a good reason. In our society, we have made the determination that we're not going to put people that are mentally incompetent to death. I mean, that's one of the laws that's on the book. I'm okay with that. What I'm saying is the bar needs to be higher to be able to reach that conclusion, and then it doesn't need to be once it's been reached once, depending on the mental incapacitation. We need to make sure that we're revisiting and making sure, see, hey, could competency be restored, and then carry out the justice that the jury of his peers prescribed.
We've talked about a lot about Nikki Green and everything, but why is this important to you?
I mean, I think more than anything, life has consequences. And I think that we need to make sure that the people that stand on that thin blue line and protect us and do their duty, um, that we're going to fight for them and advocate for them. I mean, whether that's the local jailer or the local sheriff's department or the police officer, the highway patrolman or soldiers. A lot of times they walk out their front door and they don't know if they're coming home. And I just think that we want to make sure that we honor their duty and their service and their sacrifices that they do make, and make sure that we do that by making sure justice is not perverted.
And I mean, his mom, this is something that happened more than 20 years ago, but she's still fighting for justice, or what she sees as what needs to be done justice wise. I mean, this is what the jury said. She's saying, why isn't what the jury decided done, completed?
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that needs to be reevaluated, and I'm very supportive. Representative Randy Worthen is working on legislation to fix that this year, and I think it'll have broad-based, bipartisan, bicameral support here up in Oklahoma City, and hopefully get that passed into law and make that retroactive.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good Christmas.
Hey,
Merry
you too.
Christmas.